everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Gia. I am a 26-year-old lady who lives in my mom's basement, and I'm wearing a sweater even though it is 80 degrees outside. Therefore, it is fall. I have decided. I see blue forecast numbers. Like if I see blue in the forecast, it's fall, baby. I wanted to do a fall TBR that included books that I am planning to read between October and the end of the year, but it's not all of them. Let's not get too hasty. I am not that good at planning. A lot of these are more atmospheric reads that I chose to put at the end of the year, that I kind of crafted my whole year worth of reading around certain themes. As we all know, I have done that in the past. So we're getting to that point in the year where all of the fall and winter books are starting to come up. So a lot of these have been sitting on a list for a particularly long time, but others are more new releases. This is going to be a mix of books that I own, books from Kindle Unlimited, and books from the library, because we all know I am a broke bitch who is reading on a budget. This is free. All of this is free. I did not pay for any of these books unless I keep a book too long and I have to pay a fine to the library, which I do document that. So when I do my end of the year cost analysis, I will include my library fines, which I have had to pay some library fines this year, but it's fine. We're not all perfect. And like I said, this is not going to be all the books that I read this fall. So that being said, there are 26 that I'm going to talk about today, which, yes, we all know I'm crazy. I usually aim to read about 7 to 10 books a month, and I've been averaging 7 to 8. So it's not impossible, but we all know what happens when I get too cocky about planning. So without further ado, let's get started. The first book is The High Mountain Court by A.K. Mulford. This is book 1 of a 5-book series. I've been wanting to get more into longer book series again. I've been really on my standalone / duology sleigh this year, and I think I really want to dive into longer book series again. And I've been feeling some type of way lately, and I think I want more of a romantasy vibe going into the fall season. I've been really feeling it in my bones that it's another romantasy time. I've been kind of living and breathing in my gothic horror fantasy era, and we will talk more about that as the later times come. But yes, The High Mountain Court is book 1 in a 5-book series. It is about, well, the first book is about our main character, Remy, spelled Remy, not Remi, like the rat in Ratatouille. Remy is a red witch. She has been on the run for most of her life. The court that she aligned herself with, that she was born into, was absolutely decimated when she was a kid, and she's been on the run ever since. And there are different kinds of witches in her world. She is a red witch. I don't know about all the other types of witches that exist quite yet, but apparently red witches are rare. That makes sense. Remy comes in contact with the crown prince of another court, who is saying, "I need your help, Miss Ma'am." And she goes, "Okay, but what's in it for me?" And we're going to find out what's in it for her, because I have no idea. I didn't want to read this book not only because it's been recommended to me 17 million times by Amazon, but also I have seen one of the books, like the most recently published book, kept catching my eye whenever I went to Walmart, because I'm a simple girl. Whenever I go to Walmart to buy cat litter, I peruse the book aisle for special editions or signed copies, because once upon a time they used to sell them there. But this book, I think it was The Rogue Crown. I think it's book 3 or book 4. I think it's 4. This book kept catching my eye every time I went to Walmart, and I kept, what I always do is I'll take a picture of a book whenever I'm out and about and I see one that catches my eye. I'll take a picture of it and tell myself to research it later. I have 2 or 3 pictures of this book, and it wasn't even the first one in the series. So this is the first one in the series. So we're going to start here, and if we like it, we're going to continue. The next book is House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. I have heard that this is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses by the Grimm's brothers. It's a very not obscure tale by the Grimm's brothers, but it's not one that I know personally. So I'm going into this completely blind. I've also heard that it takes some dark turns, so maybe we might be getting some gothic horror in here. I'm prepared to be a little afraid, a little frightened, a little fearful, a little petrified, if you will. Maybe it's just something that I need in my life right now. I will probably decide that is not the case after the fact, and I will probably be scared, because, that's what I'm asking for, but we all know me, and I'm a little scaredy cat, and I don't generally like to be scared. So maybe I might regret this. I am excited to be reading a retelling of a fairy tale that I don't already know, because you can only read so many Beauty and the Beast retellings. I mean, let's be honest. The next book is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I was not aware that this was the first book in its series. I've been recommended Tales of the Hinterland by Amazon like a million times, but Tales of the Hinterland is a book of fairy tales that exists in the Hazelwood, but is actually traditionally printed. It's like the existence of the Tales of Beetle the Bard, where it's like a book inside of a book that is now published in real life. So when I saw that the Hazelwood was the actual like book that was the first in the series, I was inspired to put it on my TBR. This book is about our girl Alice. She is 17 years old and she has been on the run with her mom for most of her life, even though she's never really known what they've been on the run from. She knows that her grandmother was like a cult horror novelist of some sort, but she's never been able to get her hands on the book in the wild because it's one of those things where the books all go missing or they just run out of print and thus they become super rare and like coveted items. So she's never really gotten her hands on this book, but then they also can't find it online anywhere. So there's a lot of cult mystique and imagination around this book, whereas people are more interested in hearing clues about it. And even if they haven't read the book, they're more interested in being a fan of the concept than they are of the work itself. So her grandmother, she's never met her, and she and her mom have been couch surfing for their entire life, and she's not entirely sure why. All of a sudden, her mom goes missing, and her grandmother is dead, and she has to actually figure out if fairy tales are real or not. So this feels very Alice in Wonderlandy, which I mean the main character's name is Alice. So it is giving that kind of vibe. So I'm not sure if that's going to be where the direction goes, but I'm excited. Maybe we'll also get some more like gothic horror elements. I might be a little scaredy cat this season. The next book is The Only Purple House in Town, and it is now in this moment when I am revisiting the Goodreads page that I realize that it is the fourth book in its series. So I already have it on loan from the library, so we're just gonna go with it and see what happens. But it's only sensible that we follow up with some of those more like dark, moody reads, and we follow up with something that is quite literally extremely cheerful in comparison. The synopsis and the vibes of this book is giving very kitschy, kooky Winchester House vibes. The Winchester House is that house in San Jose, California, where the owner of the house was constantly doing renovations on it to make doors and wings that go to nowhere. And there's a lot of urban legends and myths about whether or not this woman was like deeply haunted, open doors that went to nowhere, and so it would trap spirits in a way because they would be trying to follow her through the house, but then they literally couldn't because there would be doors that get locked into a corner and hallways that go nowhere. So it's giving very that vibes because this is about our girl Iris, who ends up inheriting her great aunt's like Victorian house, and she's failed in literally everything in life, and now she has inherited this house and she turns it into an Airbnb, which also doesn't go very well. And then the guy who liked her a lot in high school starts to like stay at her Airbnb as a semi-permanent guest, and then they both kind of encounter different guests that come and go that are not necessarily human. So it's giving Winchester House, but kitschy and kooky and heartwarming because, I mean, look at this cover. You cannot tell me that we're going to encounter something terrifying inside the depths of this book. I would not be surprised if there is like the ghost of a corgi that becomes a secondary character. Are you joking? This is just going to be a little treat, a little something to sprinkle into my October to make it kind of cutesy. These next two are going to be a back-to-back authorial feature from our girl Leigh Bardugo. We have Six of Crows and Siege and Storm, which is the sequel to Shadow and Bone. This is going to be like my third time attempting to read Six of Crows because the other two times I have attempted to read it, I have had my hands on a physical copy, but I've been so paralyzed from reading physical books that I held on to it for so long that I had to send it back before I was given like a $20 fine. Unfortunately, that's just who I was as a person earlier this year, but I finally got an ebook copy of Six of Crows. I actually have already started to read it, and it was a little slow going, but we'll see how I like it. And then Siege and Storm, of course, is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I'm not really going to talk about it very much because I just want to read the book. Now I want us all to pause and be grateful because we have now reached the portion of this video where I can actually hold up physical books, because Lord knows I am not a physical book girly, but some of these are books that I own. This one is not, but some of these are. I literally just picked this up at the library this afternoon, and this is what made me sit down and actually film this video. She's here. She's beautiful. The third book in this series is already announced and named with no cover reveal or anything, but It's coming in a year, and we already know what the name of it is. So Miss Adeline Grace is moving. She is accelerating. She is speeding. And I am seated in the passenger seat of this car. Foxglove. Let's not get too carried away. Foxglove. She's here. She's beautiful. And I'm seated for her. Now, I read Belladonna as an ebook copy, so when I picked this book up, I was like, oh my god, she's kind of thick. I did not expect that. I don't remember exactly how long Belladonna was, but I know it was not this long. This is a 400-page book, and again, she is beautiful. This color is giving pomegranate. I know this is likely not going to give Hades and Persephone. I would be shocked if it did, but this color is giving pomegranate, and it is such a beautiful fall color. I may get my nails this color next, actually. I feel so weird with her eye staring directly into the camera, but as we all know, I loved Belladonna. I gave it a 5-star rating. I did clown a little bit on the more like sexy, racy parts of it. I don't know if that vibe is going to continue into Foxglove. I'm assuming that it will because the second book is always smuttier. We know this. We've been here. A Court of Mist and Fury. Anybody? Okay. We're just going to see whether or not me revisiting this style of writing from Adeline Grace is going to procure another 5-star rating from me. Again, with her eye staring directly into the camera. So Belladonna ended with Signa meeting fate, like actual canonical fate, because she's already had a fling with canonical death, and now she's going to meet canonical fate. And just looking at the back, it looks like she's also going to have a thing with canonical fate. So we love that for her. It's giving love triangle. Is fate going to be the Rhysand? Is death going to be Tamlin? I hate that I have to use ACOTAR for everything, but it's just so funny. Okay, moving on. This does not have a pretty dust jacket, but my collector's edition of Throne of Glass has been cracked open. And by cracked open, I mean the spine was never made correctly. This was kind of made really bad, so I feel bad even opening this thing. Like, look at that. I did not do that. I did not do that. I swear to you, this thing has been sitting on my shelf for years. I did not do that. But the spine is cracked by me. Actually, I'm on like chapter 6, I think, and I'm not hating it. I have some thoughts, but I'm going to keep them to myself. I'm finally going to start Wicked King. If I don't, you can hold me accountable. I give you full permission. The next book is Grave Maidens by Kelly Kuhn. This cover is gorgeous and beautiful. I really love the ivory color that pops out. This is the first book in a duology. It is about our girl Kamani. She wants nothing more in this world than to be the best healer that ever was. But in this world, the king/ruler, when they die, they get sent to the afterlife with several people that die with them. It's giving like Pharaoh afterlife to serve them in immortality in the afterlife. So it's giving very that. It's giving ancient Egypt. I'm excited because this is about our girl Kamani, who wants to be a healer, but her sister is chosen to be one of the people that goes with the king into the afterlife when he dies, and she wants to save her sister's life because the king is sick and they're basically preparing for him to die. This is like a preparation part. The king hasn't died yet, so she's trying to figure out if maybe she can use her healing powers to save the king before he dies and therefore save her sister. When I tell you I'm seated, I'm not getting out of this chair. I am a little afraid though because it has a 3.44 rating on Goodreads, which is not bad. I am trying to read books that have less ratings, less reviews, and maybe less than a 4-star rating because I want to find the underrated gems for me, like the books that are 5 stars for me but 3s for everybody else. I want to find those. So this book has less than 2,000 ratings on Goodreads, and I've seen it recommended to me all over Amazon. I really want to read books that have lower amounts of ratings online because I see the same things being recommended all over, even book Twitter, which is not exactly a deviation away from Book Talk, but at least there's a bit more, I found, variety than Book Talk, because Book Talk is just all dark romances, or at least that's what's recommended. So I really wanted to find something a little bit different, but still, sometimes I feel like I have to dig in order to find good recommendations, or at least different recommendations. The next is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This is another book series in which not the first book, but future books have been recommended to me all over Amazon, all over like my library's recommendations. So I wanted to pick up this one. This is a adult fantasy that, according to Goodreads, does have some queer and LGBTQ representation. So I'm seated. Not just the cover, but the vibes is giving me Bone Weaver. As we all know, I didn't really like Bone Weaver that much, but it was kind of like necromancy bone magic. This book is about Lynn. She is the Bone Shard daughter in question. She is the daughter of the Emperor, and there's some political turmoil happening, and he refuses to acknowledge her as his heir. So she feels as though she needs to prove herself. She's also kind of locked inside the palace all day, every day, and it's very not clear as to everything that's going on inside the book itself. It just says trapped in a palace of locked doors and dark secrets, and that she has to prove her worth by mastering the forbidden art of bone shard magic, which her father also is a master of bone shard magic, so I'm not sure how that works exactly. But this book is very well recommended and well shared across the internet. I haven't seen many people I know review it, but it has over 25,000 ratings on Goodreads with a 403 rating, so I'm excited to see where it goes. But again, to get some good fantasy queer representation, I'm seated at all times. So even if it's bad, I'm probably still going to love it. Next, I'd like to read A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I managed to get the entire trilogy from the used bookstore. As somebody who is a newer booktube creator, I am not new to the booktube community. I've been watching for several years, and it has been hard to find a creator that recommends me books that I actually like instead of just being a comfort creator that I watch. It's like watching the Great British Baking Show, but it's watching somebody talk about books even if I don't like the books they're talking about. But when I saw that Rachel rated the first 2 books 5 stars, I said, oh, I'm gonna like this. So I grabbed the whole trilogy, the book. It's a reverse Beauty and the Beast retelling. And what I mean by that is that it feels Beauty and the Beast retelling but it's from the perspective of the beast. It's from the perspective of the prince. His name is Ren, Rhen, and he is doomed to repeat his 18th year, but he turns into a beast, and he has to get a girl to love him. The girl in question, her name is Harper. She has cerebral palsy, so we have a disabled lead, which is very rare to see, so I'm excited to see it. And she saves somebody on the streets of Washington, D.C., and then is pulled into this magical world. And then I'm assuming she needs to help Prince Ren become a prince again. I'm intrigued. I have all 3 books, so I might as well just read them all like this fall season, right? The bookstore people also told me that getting your hands on the 3rd book is in particular pretty hard in a used bookstore. So when she said that to me, I was like, oh, definitely all of you are coming home with me, because I was just going to get the first one and say, oh, if I like the others, I'll come back and get the other 2. But then she said, no, like the fact that we have the 3rd one, period, you like, I'm being so for real, just buy the whole trilogy. I was like, oh, okay, girl, get your commission. The last book that I can hold up, and thus ending this segment of the video, is Three Dark Crowns by Ken Dare Blake. I have owned this book for several fucking years, and I have not once cracked this spine. This spine is uncracked, and I bought it used, so I don't know what happened to it in its past life before it came to me. But we're gonna find out. So every generation in this kingdom, a pair of triplet daughters are born, and then they all have to fight against each other with magic and wits and smarts to kill the other 2 and become queen, who then bears another set of triplets, and then the whole thing continues. It's not that I don't like the idea of siblings competing against each other, but going into a book knowing that you're gonna have 3 different siblings and 2 of them are gonna die, and you're going to expect me to pick a favorite, that's brave, that's bold. I'm still excited, but like, that's bold of you to assume that I won't love all 3 of them in their own little ways, even if one of them is conniving and evil. This next one, I'm a little scared. I'm a little terrified, but not because of the content, but because the Goodreads rating is so low. A Crown of Ivy and Glass by Claire Legrand. Browsing the first couple of reviews on this, it seems that this is a repeat author for a lot of people, but this book in particular was just a letdown for them. So I don't know if maybe this book is just not it. When it comes to Miss Legrand's discography, if you will, I'm still seated, because look at this cover. How could you not want to read this? Look at the color. Look at the green. Look me in my eye and tell me that is not the prettiest green cover you have ever seen in your life. It's giving Middle England. It's giving Dark Ages. It's giving Prince Arthur, Robin Hood. Am I the only one who sees these things? The cadence and the titling is very similar. We've seen this before. You know, a blank of blank and blank. More on that later. You know, I looked at it and the words in the title were different. Ivy, not glass. Glass is normal, but ivy? I was intrigued. I decided to put this book into a longer video project that I'm going to be producing over the next couple of weeks and months. But then I saw Rachel had it on her shelves, and I was like, okay. And then I saw a book Twitter mutual also own this book, and I've been seeing it pop up in a couple of people's book hauls and stuff, but I haven't seen a lot of discussion about it. The book has under 2,000 ratings on Goodreads. Maybe it's more popular on Amazon. Who knows? Sometimes that does happen. I'm not going to go over the summary because it seems kind of convoluted to explain in like a little sound bite. I am intrigued. It's giving very fantastical Middle England, like Dark Ages Middle England. There's a demon called the Man with the Three-Eyed Crown, and that just made me think of the Three-Eyed Raven from Game of Thrones. So I mean, if you could give me a romantasy Game of Thrones, I'm not gonna complain. That 314, that pie rating right there, that pie rating might just go up if that's what you give me. I might just be silly and rate it 5 stars, but I don't know yet. Well, I guess we're gonna find out. Next is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, another book that I'm not going to discuss that much because it really should just speak for itself as for like the fall vibes, the general feeling that this book emits, that it's just supposed to be a cozy little fantasy about an orc opening a coffee shop because she's tired of war. And then the sequel that's planned is called Bookshops and Bone Dust. So it's going to be a coffee shop and then a bookstore. The next book is The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. This is an older pick. This was published in 2014, which is not to say that it's old, but it hasn't been published in the last 5 years, which a lot of people tend to focus more on like newer releases and stuff. This was interesting to me because it had never crossed my path before. Genres on Goodreads are giving urban fantasy and steampunk and mystery as some of the primary genres, and those are not really things that I visit, but I am reading Six of Crows, and if that is not steampunk, I don't know what is. So really we're sticking to a theme here. This is a mix of like an espionage spy book, but then also libraries. I might correct myself later, and I'm giving myself permission to use this bit in a later review, but the librarian of Crooked Lane may have stumbled and fell just so the invisible library could could walk. I can't even say could run because we all know how I felt about the librarian of Crooked Lane. This is about Irene. She is a professional spy who works for the Capital L Library, and she harvests fiction. That's what the synopsis says, that she harvests fictions from different realities, and she is sent to alternative London to retrieve a dangerous book, but then it turns out that it was already stolen. So now she and her assistant have to go find it, and they end up like in the underground of London where there's supernatural creatures, magic, and secret societies. Again, I may correct myself later, but this may be what the librarian of Crooked Lane was attempting. Maybe not with the supernatural creatures, but at the very least with a magic system, because the librarian of Crooked Lane had an interesting attempt at a magic system, but it just is very poorly done. I don't want to talk about it. It's just going to make me upset. The next book is going to be a continuation of my miniature series, reading the books in my Kindle Unlimited library that have been in there for literal years, but Air Awakens by Elise Kova. You know who this author is because she has been recommended to you all across Amazon and Book Talk. You know exactly who this bitch is. And the first character we're introduced to in the synopsis is a library apprentice. What else did you expect me to be reading this fall season? So you have a library apprentice and a sorcerer prince who walk into an unbreakable magic bond, because in this world, elemental magic is seen as something that needs to be suppressed. And in this little library apprentice, she has some powers that she didn't know that she had, and she's going to come into these powers during this book. So once again, protagonist who has magic powers that she didn't know she had until, chapter 12. It's a 5-book series, and again, I'm going to continue with that trend of reading books that are in longer book series, because I really want to I want to dive into some book series that I'm like in the home of for a while. I kind of want to make myself comfortable and not just be constantly jumping from narrative to narrative, because I am getting a little bit of exhaustion from every book I read is about different people. Next, we're going to revisit V.E. Schwab for the 3rd book this year. Is it going to be another banger? A Darker Shade of Magic. This book was recommended to me by a friend in my 12 recommendations by 12 friends that I started at the beginning of the year. I am finally getting around to it. This is the first book in a trilogy by V.E. Schwab, so I'm excited to see how they go into writing a trilogy instead of a standalone, because they're pretty good at doing the standalone where, from start to finish, it's a completed book. So I'm really wondering if every book is going to be still like complete, or if it's going to have that syndrome that a lot of books these days have, where they're kind of written to be a part of a series and thus they're not complete start to finish. There's still going to be a lot of cliffhangers and stuff that you have to read the next book to know about, and thus you have to buy it. I'm excited to see how narratively this is constructed. I've read 2 other books by V.E. Schwab before and I have yet to be disappointed. I doubt that we will start now. This next book is going to seem a little random because I've seen nobody talk about it, but I'm trying to do this thing where instead of just sticking to books that I see recommended online, I want to go through my library and see what's available, like what's available in the recommendations that they're giving me, because of course the library has so many options. So I really wanted to utilize the library's algorithm and have it tell me what I should be reading that people might not be talking about. So this choice may seem random, but it has over 100,000 ratings on Goodreads. Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. I hope that I'm saying that right. This is a new adult romantasy. This is not unfamiliar territory. The primary character is a siren, but there are fae, and I think there are vampires. If this becomes a new adult smut fest, I'm not going to complain because I think I need that in my life right now. I'm excited, and I also really, again, want to do that thing where I comb through my library looking for books that I didn't know I was looking for. You know, I really want to do the whole, like when you do a tarot card reading and you run your hands over the cards and you stop when a card speaks to you. I want to do that with the library's catalog. I just want to go and like swipe the shelves in the library and stop when it tells me to stop and pick out a book. That's such a good date idea, actually. I think people have done that where you just like run your hands along the shelves and then you stop and then you pick out the book and you swap. But anyway, if anybody wants to do that with me this fall season, I'm available. Next is another underrated pick. This was on Kindle Unlimited, but now it is not. So thus, I must read it because you took it off Kindle Unlimited and you thought that you could get away from me? Very rude of you. A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This is the first book in a series that I don't know how long it is. Let's check. There's only 2 right now. I'm loving the gemstone iconography. The main character's name is Arwen Valendale. It's giving romantasy in such a slay way. I'm at book like 19 out of this list, so you'll have to excuse me. I'm going to pretend like I'm not reading out of the corner of my eye right now. This is about our girl Arwen, which is once again the cuntiest of slay names. She takes the place of her brother to be prisoner by the dangerous kingdom of the Onyx King, and the Onyx King uses her to heal his soldiers because there's a war. When you read this kind of thing, you would make the assumption that the secondary character / romantic interest would be like the crown prince, like the son of the Onyx King in question here. But no, it seems that she has to work with a fellow prisoner. So that's a bit of a subversion. I wonder if it's a prince in hiding, the prince of another kingdom that was taken by this Onyx King and that she didn't know about, the Silver Kingdom. And this is the Silver Prince, who's a fellow prisoner, and thus she becomes the Silver Queen. Who knows? I'm going to be seated to find out, because Arwen Valendale, that's a queen name. She's going to be the queen of something. You just know that she is. This next book makes me a little nervous because it was very difficult to find online because it's the author writing under a pseudonym, but the pseudonym is not widely represented in her discography. So when I looked for Wicked Court by Alexi Blake on Goodreads, it didn't come up as that. It came up with May Sage. But if you look very, very close at this picture of Wicked Court that I have on the screen for you, it says May Sage writing as Alexi Blake. I don't know what Miss Sage writes like in her normal work, but it seems that she wants to differentiate herself from that to write under a different name. Maybe this is like a darker kind of tone. Maybe it's like a sexier tone. Who knows? I'm also a little nervous because it's obviously written in first person, and they make a point to tell you at the bottom that, disclaimer, unlike many of May Sage's novels, Wicked Court is written in first person. It's not only written in first person, but they felt the need to warn me that it's written in first person. I think that that's the distinction. I'm a little nervous. A little. Just a teeny bit. I don't exactly know how to pronounce her name, but I'm just going to call her Valari. She seems to be the youngest child of the Unseelie Queen, so we're getting fae romance, probably. Valari just wants to be an assistant. I'm not exactly sure what that means yet, but maybe she just wants to be like corporate corporate fae. She wants to be as far away from court as humanly possible, but then some things happen and she has to step up and like decide whether or not, do I want to be a part of this world or not. Maybe she has a lot of older siblings, so it gets to the point where nothing is really gonna like matter to her in matters of state and such, because all of her siblings are going to fall with those responsibilities. So maybe she just kind of doesn't care. I don't know, maybe her whole family dies and now she has to care. So again, I'm a little bit nervous. I did get this book for free for Stuff Your Kindle Day a couple of months ago, so I didn't pay anything for it, but I do own it. That does count. I did not pay any money for it, even though I bought it. It counts. Okay, no more obscure library or Kindle picks. Let's get back to the new releases and the more well-known books that are being talked about online. First being Assistant to the Villain. This came out literally a month ago. Assistant Wanted. Notorious high-ranking villain seeks loyal, level-headed assistant for unspecified office duties, supporting staff for random mayhem, terror, and other dark things in general. Discretion is a must. Excellent benefits. The way I am so intrigued, and the fact that this was a TikTok series turned into a novel, those series have me like screaming, crying, throwing up sometimes. I really do be cackling and giggling and kicking my feet at a lot of those. So to say I am seated, I saw this reel the other day that was like, if Voldemort had a muggle assistant, Once Upon a Time meets The Office. I'm so excited. I'm so ready. I've seen a little bit of people talking about it, but I haven't seen a lot of bad, negative things. I'm trying to stay as far away from it as possible because I want to read it for myself. Next is Divine Rivals. The way I'm so excited to read this, you have literally no idea. It's marketed as enemies to lovers, so it better be enemies to lovering. Next is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I follow Carissa on Twitter and she does make me giggle from time to time, so I do kind of like her personality. This book is extremely popular. Like, this whole series is extremely popular on book Twitter and book talk, but I don't really see a lot of people talking about it. It's just one of those series that I see people talking about, or at least I see that people are liking, but there's not a lot of, maybe I'm just not in the right place, but there's not a lot of like fangirling over it. A lot of what I see in my corner of book Twitter is people talking about Once Upon a Broken Heart, which I'm begging you to stop, please. You're just torturing me at this point. And then, of course, people talking about the Massiverse, and Divine Rivals is very big right now. But maybe, like, people are just deeper into the series and they're just not talking about it as much. Again, if it's rated 4.38 out of almost 155,000 ratings on Goodreads, I'd say it's a pretty consistent good read for a lot of people. That, and it's got like 5 books in it at this point. It's just got 2. I think maybe I just saw that Carissa was planning 5 books and I just assumed there were already 5 books. This is romantasy, but vampires. So no fae, just vampires. Maybe. Who knows? Sometimes there's both. Usually these days there's both. Maybe this will be my return to brunch romantasy moment where it's just back to basics, back to vampires and only vampires. The way I am so ready for this book to be in my hands. It's not going to be in my hands because I put a hold on it through audio, but Foul Heart Huntsman. You all know how much I loved Foul Lady Fortune. This is going to slap. This is going to be a slap for me. I just know it is. Remember when I said I was going to read These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends before I started Foul Heart Huntsman? Yeah, that didn't happen, but I'm still going to read this first and then I'll go back to These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends. I want more spying. I want more espionage. I want more forbidden love. Please, I'm begging. I need it right here in my little hands. I'll even make my hands into a little bowl so you could fill it up. The begging continues because I'm not going to get my hands on this book for another 3 months. But House of Earth and Blood, the first book in Crescent City, needs zero introduction or discussion. And I wish I could say I wasn't completely captivated by the Massiverse. Have I only read the ACOTAR series? Yes. Throne of Glass is something. I'm interested. My brow is quirked. My ear is leaned in. I am listening, but I'm kind of squinting a little bit. How I feel about Throne of Glass may be a repeat of how I felt about Shadow and Bone. I had read Ninth House and Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo first and loved them, and then I read Shadow and Bone, which was 10 years old. I mean, I still liked it. We obviously went backwards. Maybe I should have read Throne of Glass before I read ACOTAR, but if I had, I would have felt that ACOTAR was like a literary classic. Maybe we should be grateful for the cards that we've been dealt. I'm gonna end this silly, goofy little time with a silly, goofy little sequel called Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. The way people are shitting and pissing themselves over this book because they are so scared of what is inside of it is so funny to me, but also I'm just as curious. A lot of people are concerned that Xaden is going to be Tamlin because there is a part of the synopsis in which there's a reference to another person, like a third person who's going to be challenging Violet and like getting on her last nerve. People are concerned. People are scared. And I kind of love that anticipation going into a book because at times it may have been cringy and goofy, but I loved Fourth Wing. And to see people so excited over a book is just, it's so nice to be like in a community like that where you share excitement for something with people. And there are people who are more excited than you. That's for shit sure, because I haven't turned my Twitter into an Iron Flame fan page. It's nice to see people excited about stuff that you're also like kind of excited for. It's content generation, baby. Like people are creating content about this, and that is always so nice to see. Bits of art that come out and people are just so inspired to talk about it, even if it's just romantasy with dragons and is kind of divergent fan fiction. I'm just gonna let that marinate. I'm gonna let that sit. That is an idea that has been sitting in the back of my skull, back in the little filing cabinet, sitting in the back there. I think Fourth Wing is divergent fanfiction. Anyways, that is all from me. Thank you so much for hanging out with me if you got to the end of this video. If you'd like to find me anywhere else, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Remember to drink water and be nice to each other and exude kindness and empathy with everything that you do. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.